Before we begin, I have a favor to ask. If you enjoy real stories from the mountains, survival, tragedy, and mystery, and the people behind them, please take a second to subscribe. It helps us keep telling these stories in the depth they deserve. Now, let's go to Mount Elbrus. Every mountaineer knows one rule. When the weather turns, you turn around. They did. So why did 5 of them never make it home? On July 25th, 2026, high on the dormant volcano, Mount Elbrus, somewhere above 5,000 meters, 7 climbers from Bosnia and Herzegovina are descending through cloud. They can't see the summit anymore. They can't see the valley. And at times, they cannot even see the route beneath their feet. The wind is increasing. Freezing snow sweeps across the mountain, and one of the 7 is already struggling to stay standing. But right now, nobody believes 5 people are going to die. Nobody knows they are inside a disaster. They think they are going home because only a short time earlier, they made the decision mountaineers are always told to make. They turned around. But somewhere inside that whiteout, that decision will stop being enough. To understand what happens next, we need to go back several hours. It is still dark, approximately 1 a.m. 7 headlamps begin moving upward on the southern slopes of Mount Elbrus. The climbers have traveled from Zenica, Bosnia Herzegovina. Their names are Alma Okinovic, her husband Denis, Dr. Miliha Osovic, Almir Krivdic, Nirmal Talam, Kemal Vidimlic, and Haris Adilovic. They have spent months preparing for this. Some have climbed above 5,000 meters before. Some are connected to mountain rescue. Miliha is a surgeon. This is not a group encountering mountains for the first time. And tonight, nothing initially appears extraordinary. Other climbers are moving upward too. The cold is manageable. The forecast information they have seen appears acceptable. Above them is Elbrus at 5,642 meters, the highest mountain in Europe by the conventional 7 summits definition. And for months, this has been the objective, and tonight, it feels close. The journey began with excitement, thousands of kilometers from Bosnia to the Caucasus, 7 friends looking to conquer one mountain. They posed for photographs, shared messages from the road, talked about reaching the summit. Among them were Alma and Denis Okinovic, husband and wife. They had built much of their life around travel and outdoor adventure. People online knew them through an unusual little family, Alma, Denis, and their cat, Machika. Together, they were known as Trio Fantastico. Their photographs showed mountains differently, not as trophies, but almost as extensions of home. Machika sitting in a pack, Alma smiling, Denis carrying gear, another trail, another road, and another adventure. Nothing about those photographs suggests what is coming. And there shouldn't be, because they don't know either. The day before the summit attempt, something happens that will only become significant afterward. The Zenica climbers encounter another expedition. They hear familiar voices, Bosnian. Incredibly, another group from Bosnia and Herzegovina are climbing Elbrus at almost exactly the same time. The 2 teams stop, talk, laugh, compare their plans. There is no tension, no warning music, just mountaineers meeting countrymen far from home. The Zenica group explains that they intend to begin their summit attempt at approximately 1 a.m. The other team has a different plan. Their local guide believes conditions may deteriorate sometime after 6 in the morning, so they intend to leave earlier, around 10 p.m.
3 hours earlier.
Yes, 3 hours earlier. Nobody standing there knows whether those 3 hours actually matter. They say goodbye, wish each other luck, and walk away. One group goes one direction, and the other in another direction. The first Bosnian group begins climbing at about 10 p.m. The night is cold. Wind moves across the snow, but they continue higher. 4,500 meters, 5,000 meters. The fog begins thickening. The wind grows even stronger. Eventually, near approximately 5,400 meters, the mountain changes. Visibility deteriorates. Wind reportedly approaches 70 kilometers per hour. The climbers stop. They discuss their options. The summit is close, but nobody argues. They turn around and begin descending. Their summit attempt is actually over. They do not know it yet, but their story on Elbrus is almost finished.
I would say the best decision.
Absolutely. 3 hours later, the 7 climbers from Zenica begin moving. Headlamps form small pools of light against the snow. One step and a breath, another step. The crampons are biting the ground. The poles are touching the ice. They look above and see nothing but darkness. Kemal Vidlimich has climbed high mountains before. Ararat, Damavand, Bazarduza. He knows altitude. Harris knows mountains too. Several members of this team understand rescue. They know that conditions can change, but nothing yet tells them to stop.
So they continue.
Yes, and the darkness slowly weakens. Blue-gray light begins revealing the enormous white slopes of Elbrus. They are high now, above 5,000 meters. Each step becomes slower. At sea level, 100 meters is almost nothing. At this altitude, every vertical meter demands something out of them. Oxygen, heat, strength, concentration. Everyone moves in a slow motion. But the summit is getting closer, and then somewhere around 5,500 meters, Alma stops. Something isn't right. We don't know exactly what Alma feels in those first moments, only that she is seriously unwell. And now the group faces its first major decision. The summit is close, very close. This is exactly where summit fever can actually destroy judgment, where somebody says, "We've come too far, just keep going. Another 100 meters, you'll be fine." She thinks, and her fellow colleagues said that everything would be fine.
Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to distinguish the symptoms of altitude sickness versus just mere physical exhaustion from uphill climbing.
Yes. However, Alma uses her wise judgment. She knows it's more than just a little tiredness and actually decides to turn around. Her husband, Dennis, naturally goes with her. There is no summit discussion. His wife is going down. He is going with his wife. And the third person who turns around is Dr. Maliha Kosovic, the doctor. 3 climbers begin descending. 4 decide to continue upward just a little further. For the first time that morning, the 7 ended up separating.
And at this point, nothing catastrophic has actually happened yet. It just seems like good decisions and what normally happens in a large group. Not everyone can make it.
Exactly. If you stop the story here, you'd expect everyone to meet back at camp later that day. And that's important.
I would.
Yeah, right now, this looks like a normal high altitude decision. Someone feels unwell and she goes down. 2 people accompany her. The rest continue upward to the summit. In thousands of expeditions, this is where the story ends. Everyone meets later at camp. Maybe Alma recovers lower down. Maybe the other summit. Then they laugh about it afterwards when they meet up. That future is still possible. The remaining 4 continue, not far. They are thinking it's not too far away. It's so close. They climbed perhaps another 50, maybe 100 vertical meters. Then figures appear through the deteriorating weather. Other climbers, they're climbing down. The Zenica group asks, "What's happening above?" The answer isn't encouraging. Snow is building. Very, very bad. Visibility is bad. Conditions are worsening. The 4 stop. They talk and they make their decision. Turn around. That's it. The summit is finished. No photograph, no flag, no final push. The mountain will still be there next year. So they begin descending. Getting home is more important than reaching the summit.
So all 7 have now turned back.
Yes. And this is the moment where, if you're listening to the story for the first time, you should feel relief. They made the right decision. Everybody is descending. They're going home.
Very normal. The danger should be decreasing now. They should be safe, right?
It should have been. Every meter down should help. Every minute should bring thicker air, warmer temperatures, shelter, safety, except that's not what happens. The 4 descending climbers eventually reconnect with Alma, Dennis, and Maliha. That means those 3 were moving so slow. 7 again for a moment, but Alma is still struggling. And now the weather begins changing more quickly. The wind becomes harder, freezing precipitation begins driving across the slope. The horizon disappears. Tracks soften beneath new snow and blowing ice. The landscape begins losing contrast. White ground, white sky, white cloud. Then, almost nothing. Kamal later says there are moments when he can barely see 1 meter ahead. 1 meter. That's all.
But they are going downhill. Shouldn't they still know which direction camp is?
Well, this is where Elbrus becomes dangerous in a way photographs don't actually convey. Going down is easy. Knowing which down is the problem. Picture a huge white slope, no trail, no horizon, no distant mountain, no rocks, no building. If you angle a few degrees wrong, you may still feel as though you're descending correctly. 5 minutes, 10, 20. By the time you understand something is wrong, you're far from the route. And now you've spent energy getting lost. It also makes you feel disoriented. I remember that feeling on a few of our hikes, not being able to see a couple meters ahead due to a thick white cloud and thick fog.
So they had no way of knowing where the route was?
They may still have had GPS navigation available, but knowing where a route lies on a screen and physically following it through a storm are two very different things. Visibility was collapsing, people were weakening, the team was stopping, separating, and trying to assist climbers who could no longer move normally. And somewhere in that chaos, they began drifting away from the route.
But if they had GPS, how could they get lost?
That's a good question. Because GPS can tell you where you are. It cannot make you move. It can't show you the mountain. And when visibility is almost zero, you're exhausted. Wind pushes sideways, somebody beside you is collapsing, and the correct track is perhaps off to one side. A line on a screen doesn't magically put you back on it. And if you're walking parallel to it, it will tell you how many meters away from the waypoint you are, but it doesn't show you the terrain, the view that your eyes no longer have. The route can be right there on the screen, but the mountain between you and that line is still invisible. The group attempts to communicate. Their phones come out, calls, messages, attempts to reach rescuers, but communication is unreliable. The messages fail, and their connections don't hold.
Wait, if they knew they were in trouble, why didn't they just send an SOS with a satellite device?
Yes, so this is when they're getting a little bit panicked, and based on publicly available reports, there's no indication that the group was carrying a satellite messenger, such as a Garmin InReach device. Reports describe them relying on mobile phones, and as conditions worsened, those phones were not able to reliably get through. They began panicking, and despair was setting in, and this is where everything changes. Because somewhere below them, there are rescuers, huts, other climbers, shelter. The outside world still exists. They are so close. They simply cannot reliably reach it. So the 7 continue descending, or at least trying to. Their phones, SOS signals have actually failed them. Now we are beginning to see just how narrow the margin of error had become. At this point, the pace slows. They need to keep moving because they don't have any signals to communicate. And every time somebody stops, the cold becomes more dangerous. When a group is moving, muscles generate heat. When a group stands still, the mountain begins taking all that energy back. Alma needs help. She's deteriorating quickly. The others need to remain with her, but remaining with her means everyone moves more slowly. And at altitude, time itself becomes an enemy. Not dramatically, minute by minute, a little colder, a little more tired, a little less coordinated. Another stop, another adjustment, another attempt to find the route. Nobody yet knows which moment will become irreversible. Eventually, the team can no longer operate effectively as 7. Harris remains higher than Alma, Dennis, and Maliha. Kemal moves downward with Almir and Nirmal. There is no dramatic announcement. No one says we're splitting up permanently. They're trying to solve problems. Get somebody lower, find assistance, keep the weaker climbers moving, but once the group separates, the mountain sits between them. White, wind, distance.
That must have been terrifying because now nobody really knows what is happening to the other group.
Exactly. They can't see each other. And this is where the story begins breaking into pieces. Kamal below, Harris above, Alma struggling, Dennis beside his wife Alma, Malia the doctor is with them. Almir and Nirmal are also trying to descend, and everybody is still part of one expedition. But increasingly, they are experiencing different disasters. Then, something happens below. Almir begins losing strength. At first, maybe it's just a stumble, a fall. Help him back up. Keep going. Then he falls again. They give him fluids, some electrolytes, get him some energy, encouragement. They're telling him, come on, keep moving. We have to go down. But Almir's strength isn't returning. And soon Harris catches up with Kamal's group. And now another climber is deteriorating. First Alma, and now Almir. Harris looks at the situation with despair. There are people higher up, people here. Their communication is still not available. They cannot communicate with each other. And the weather is treacherous, clearly taking a toll on their bodies as more teammates are moving slower and slower. And this is a chilling part. Somewhere beneath that whiteout, help actually existed. Safety existed. They just couldn't reach either one. The rescue does not know exactly what is happening. Someone has to get there fast. Harris turns to Kamal. Kamal is still mobile, still strong enough to move, and he gives him an instruction. Go down. Find someone now. Please bring help.
This is the moment from the beginning.
Yes. And now you understand what came before it. Kamal isn't leaving a healthy team. He's leaving a group already coming apart. He doesn't know whether Alma is alive, and he doesn't know whether Almir will survive another hour. He doesn't know how Nirmal is doing. He doesn't know whether Harris himself will be able to descend. And now he has to walk away from all of them. It's their only hope. And Kamal disappears into the whiteout. One man, 1 meter of visibility at times, no rope of climbers ahead to follow, no teammate behind to correct him. He descends. The route disappears. He wanders off so many times. Then he corrects it again. He searches again. Wind drives across him. Minutes become an hour, but he keeps moving. He loses the route again. He corrects again. Every mistake costs time. Every correction costs energy. And behind him, the clock is running differently. Because for his friends, every minute means more cold, more exhaustion, less strength, and less chance of survival.
That is a terrible burden to carry all while trying to stay alive yourself.
Yes, it makes you feel sick to your stomach, like panic is setting in, but you need to contain it because you have a huge task at hand. At approximately the same time, far lower on Elbrus, the other Bosnian team is already safe. Their climb ended when conditions deteriorated. They turned around near 5,400 meters. They descended. They're now inside, warm, protected, and they have no idea what is unfolding above. And this is where those 3 hours begin to feel very different. 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. 3 hours, 2 groups. The same mountain, one is already safe, but one is disappearing. They had more time to see that the conditions were getting bad fast, and they also didn't travel up in exposure to the poor conditions for too long. So above Kamal, Harris stays. Almir and Nirmal are deteriorating. He tries to keep them responsive. He rubs them, massages them, he talks to them, he's encouraging them, telling them, get up, stay awake, keep fighting. Minutes become hours. There is no rescue team appearing through the storm. No sudden break in the cloud. No helicopter. Just wind. Cold. 2 weakening men, and Harris starting to suffer from the same symptoms. Kamal continues downward approximately 3 hours after leaving his friends. Something finally changes. Shapes, signs of the lower mountain, then people. They appear in front of him. Russian climbers, human beings appearing through the storm. Kamal reaches them. He explains there are climbers above. They need help immediately. He is taken toward rescuers. For the first time since leaving his friends, Kamal has accomplished something concrete. Help knows help is coming. Kamal hopes he was fast enough. He still has hope.
So this is the moment you think everyone might still be saved.
Oh, yes. And that's exactly what Kamal does not know yet, whether he was fast enough. The rescue service now understands that climbers are in trouble high on Elbrus. But the same storm that trapped the 7 now confronts the rescuers. Poor visibility, high wind, snow across the landscape, altitude. Rescue in the mountains is not simply knowing where someone is. You still have to physically reach them. And every rescuer going upward is entering the same environment that has already overwhelmed the expedition. Harris remains with Almir and Nirmal, according to Kamal's later account, for approximately 5 hours. 5 hours! Think about that in ordinary life. 5 hours is almost an entire afternoon. Now place those 5 hours above 5,000 meters, in wind, freezing cold, low visibility, not able to eat or drink, But Harris is beside his friends, who are becoming less responsive. At first, the words are probably about survival. Move, get up, stay awake, help is coming, just hang in there. Then, at some point, the nature of the conversation changes. Kamal later said Harris encouraged his friends towards
The Shahada, the Muslim prayer.
Yes, he encouraged them towards the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith.
Meaning, Harris understands they may not survive.
Yes, and this is one of those moments where nothing should be exaggerated because there's nothing we can add that makes it more powerful than what it already is. A man sitting in a storm beside two friends he cannot carry down, waiting for help that may not reach them in time. Eventually, Almir and Nirmal stop responding. According to Kamal, Harris stays with them until there is nothing he can do. They die with Harris beside them. Now Harris faces the same decision he gave Kamal: leave. There is nothing more he can do for the men beside him. If he stays, there may simply be another body. So Harris begins descending alone. He tries to navigate from memory, the terrain, the angles, everything that he remembers from the ascent. But memory and visibility are different things, and things look different when you're going up and when you're coming down. He drifts away from the route. Even Harris, one of the strongest climbers, still moving, becomes lost. Eventually, rescuers are able to detect location signals from him. Somewhere around 4,000 meters, they find him, alive. 2 survivors so far, Kamal and Harris. Nirmal and Almir are already dead, but what about the rest of them? The rescuers still need to confirm they are indeed deceased, but there are still 3 people we haven't accounted for: Alma, Dennis, and Maliha. The last time we knew exactly where they were, Harris had remained higher on the mountain with them, while Kamal, Nirmal, and Almir tried to descend. Then the group separated, the storm swallowed the distance between them, and now nobody listening to the first reports knows what happened to those 3.
So at this point, there's still hope?
Well, there has to be, because nobody has found them yet. They could have continued down another line. They could be sheltering somewhere. They could have reached another group. They could be injured. They could be unable to communicate. Nobody knows. And now the rescuers have to go back into the storm and find them. So the Russian rescuers push upward. Visibility is still poor. Wind continues sweeping across the mountain, and they're no longer searching for one group standing there. They're searching across an enormous white mountainside for 3 people whose exact condition and location are unknown. A body was found, then another.
Oh,
Conditions make recovery difficult. Some bodies can be reached, others cannot immediately be brought down. And eventually, the uncertainty disappears. First, they found Almir and Nirmal, and then they find the last 3 bodies. 5 members of the expedition are dead: Alma, Dennis, and Dr. Maliha. Almir and Nirmal.
wait. But there is something I don't understand. So, the first report said they had reached a summit.
Exactly. And now, after the disaster, the survivor accounts began changing what people thought had happened. Kamal describes Alma turning around near 5,500 meters. Dennis and Maliha go with her. The others continue only a short distance further. They meet descending climbers. The conditions above are bad. They turn around too. Harris' account broadly supports the same sequence. So, if the surviving climbers are correct, none of the 7 reached the summit, at least in that crucial respect. It appears so. And that changes everything because this wasn't a group that stayed too long on the summit. They weren't descending after celebrating at the top. They had already abandoned it, which means when the disaster begins, they are already doing the thing that is supposed to keep mountaineers alive. They're going down.
So, what actually killed them?
That's the question investigators and climbers are still trying to understand. And there may not be one answer. But now, remember something from the day before. The other Bosnian team, the conversation at 3,800 meters, their local guide, the warning, the weather expected to worsen after approximately 6 in the morning. They started at 10. The Zenica group started around 1.
So, the Zenica group didn't have a local guide?
Correct. They were climbing independently. But we have to be careful. That does not mean the absence of a guide caused the 5 deaths. The survivors say the forecast they had checked did not predict anything remotely like what ultimately arrived. So they underestimated the weather. Other climbers were also on the mountain, and bad mountain weather can intensify much faster than expected. but it creates one question that is impossible to ignore. Why did two groups standing on the same mountain on the same night apparently understand the morning differently? Think about it again. 10 p.m., the first team leaves. 1 a.m., the second begins. 3 hours. Maybe those 3 hours meant nothing. Maybe the storm would have caught them anyway. Maybe Alma's illness would still have slowed the descent. Maybe visibility would still have collapsed. We don't know. But look at where the first team is when the conditions deteriorate. Already turning around, already descending. And look at where the Zanitsa team is. They're higher up. They're later. With one climber already struggling, they're still moving uphill. And that doesn't prove the causation, but it shows how small differences become large ones in the mountain.
So maybe there wasn't one catastrophic mistake.
Exactly. Maybe that is what makes the story so unsettling. Remove one thing, maybe everyone survives. If Alma doesn't become ill, the team's moving faster. If visibility remains good, they follow the route down. If communications work, if they have an in-reach device, rescuers receive information earlier. If another climber doesn't deteriorate, the group remains together. If the weather arrives later, they're lower. If the team begins earlier, maybe they're already descending when the conditions peak. If rescuers can reach them sooner, maybe hypothermia doesn't win. But none of those things happened alone. They stacked one on top of another. Illness, weather, navigation, communication, cold. We're not sure if they had their cold rescue items like a heat blanket, like the bivy blanket. And we don't know whether they put that in place, but it seems as though when they found them, those were not utilized. The navigation, communication, exhaustion, the separation, the time until the expedition stopped being 7 climbers making the decisions and became 7 individuals trying to survive the next few minutes. You can't really prepare for those conditions when you haven't ever experienced them before. And during a bad storm, because a bad storm is very dangerous.
I know really well.
Oh, yeah. Thousands of kilometers away, families are waiting, friends are waiting, members of the rescue community are waiting, and the cruelty is obvious. Some of these people were accustomed to being ones who went out when something else was missing. The rescuers now needed rescuing. Maliha, the doctor, couldn't save the people around her. Alma and Dennis, the couple who traveled everywhere together, would never come home together in the way they expected.
And the cat was on the expedition too, I believe.
According to later reporting citing Kemal, yes, Machika, the third member of Trio Fantastico, consisting of Alma, Dennis, and their adopted cat, for years, the three had traveled and climbed together, turning their social pages into a diary of very unusual little mountain family. Initial reports about what happened to her conflicted. Later reporting said she too had been found. Surprisingly, the evidence indicates Machika really was taken high onto Elbrus with Alma and Dennis. Last photo showed Machika during acclimatization on Elbrus. So your instinct is right. That is extraordinarily high and cold for a cat. And right now, the most likely reconstruction from the available reporting is that Machika was being carried inside a specialized backpack for significant portions of the climb, rather than walking independently at those elevations. The fact that she was reportedly found in a backpack with Alma and Dennis supports that. Although it does not tell us exactly when she was placed inside it, it's a tiny part of a much larger human tragedy. But it tells you something about Alma and Dennis. They didn't simply climb together. They had built this entire little world of adventure together. A husband, a wife, a cat, photos, roads, mountains, and the 3 names had become almost inseparable. Trio Fantastico. Kemal and Harris survive, but they survive in completely different ways. Kemal survives after being told to leave. For approximately 3 hours, he walks away from friends whose condition he does not know, carrying the burden if trying to move fast because his friends are going to die if they are too late. Every step towards safety is a step further from them. Harris survives because he stays, until staying no longer helps anymore. Then he too has to leave. It's amazing. He was able to survive while not moving, but I'm sure he was sitting and standing in order to keep the blood moving. That's a sheer will to survive.
One man has to live with leaving early and not finding help fast enough, and other has to live with not being able to keep them alive.
Yes. And neither decision should be judged casually from a warm room. There are no clean choices in that kind of situation. Only decisions made with incomplete information inside a deadly storm. Eventually, part of the expedition returns to Bosnia. The vehicle, the equipment, gear comes home, backpacks, clothing, their climbing equipment, and objects that 7 people packed when they believed they would unpack them again. There is something strangely painful about possessions coming back without their owners, because equipment remembers nothing. A boot doesn't know where it has been. A backpack doesn't know or understand why it's empty, but the people waiting for it do. And now, go back one final time to approximately 5,500 meters. Alma says something isn't right. She turns around. Dennis goes with her. Maliha goes too. 4 climb a little higher. They meet people coming down. Conditions above are deteriorating, and they turn around. And at that exact moment, all 7 have made the decision that every mountaineer book tells you to make. Forget the summit and go home.
And that's what makes this one so incredibly unfortunate, because you can't say they should have turned around.
No, they did. That's why the old saying feels different after Elbrus. The summit is optional, coming home is mandatory. But coming home isn't a decision. Turning around is the decision. Coming home is the journey that follows it. And on July 25th, that journey became a nightmare. The mountain disappeared and the route disappeared. All communications failed. Alma weakened, Almir weakened. The group broke apart. Kamal was sent down. Harris stayed. He tried his best, and one man searched for help. Another sat beside friends as they died. And eventually 2 men came out of the storm. 5 did not. Alma Okanovic, Dennis Okanovic, Dr. Maliha Kosovic, Almir Krivdic, Nirmal Talam. 7 people had traveled to Elbrus wanting the summit and a fun, unforgettable experience. They all trained for it. 7 people were heading toward the same summit, but probably not for exactly the same reason. For Kamal, Elbrus was another step after mountains above 5,000 meters. For Maliha, it was another expedition beyond the world of the operating room. For Alma and Dennis, mountains had already become a part of their life they built together. And for Almir and Nirmal and Harris, this was a serious objective shared with people they knew and they trained with and trusted. We don't have a recorded statement from every member telling us exactly what Elbrus meant to them, but we do know what the mountain represented collectively. 5,642 meters, the highest mountain in Europe, a goal they had prepared for together.
So this wasn't necessarily 7 people chasing the 7 summits.
No, and we shouldn't claim that. Elbrus belongs to the 7 summits, but there is no evidence that all 7 were pursuing that entire challenge. What we know is simpler. They wanted this mountain, but by the time the disaster truly began, none of them cared about the summit anymore. They wanted warmth, a hut, a voice on the phone, another person appearing through the white, one more step downward, and home at last.
They had already chosen home.
Yes, 7 people chose it, and somewhere inside a world reduced to less than a meter of white, only 2 found their way back. Turning around saved them from going higher, but it couldn't guarantee the road down. Thanks for listening, guys. I'm Rima. This is Rimbach Arcane. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and comment below for some more stories you'd like to hear. We'll see you in the next one.